The sky had turned the color of bruised steel. Dust swirled in low, angry spirals as the freight train cut through the scorched prairie, the screech of metal on metal ringing out like a wounded animal's cry. The depot was barely more than a leaning shed nailed into the land, a forgotten outpost with one bench, one lamp, and a roof that coughed in the wind. It was here that the world shifted, not with a scream, but with silence. Jed Carter stood alone on the platform, oil-stained overalls clinging to his lean frame, a socket wrench in one hand, a thermos in the other. His face was weather-worn, not from age but from sorrow. Grief had hollowed him gently, like water over stone. The kind of man who never raised his voice because life had already shouted enough. Beside him. Clara swayed gently in a wooden chair, drawing circles in the dust with her boot heel. 10 years old and already older than most men, she was deaf, born with ears that never opened to thunder or lullabies. But her eyes, they missed nothing. The wind hit harder. The freight train screeched into the depot without warning. No schedule. No whistle. A polished black luxury car sat tethered at the back like a misplaced crown on a pauper's head. Steam hissed, brakes groaned, and then the door to that car burst open with a slam that echoed off the hills. A woman stumbled out. Designer heels cut into dry gravel. Her coat flapped like a wounded flag. She was thin, pale, and breathing as if she had outrun death itself. In her trembling hands was a steel case, its corners dented and smeared with what looked like blood. She looked at Jed like he was a ghost. He looked at her like she'd broken the world's silence. No words came. She scanned the platform, wild-eyed. "I need help," she gasped, voice cracked and hoarse. "Please someone?" Jed nodded once and gestured to Clara, the girl. Moved with calm precision. Retrieving a flask of water and offering it to the stranger. The woman drank too fast, spilling down her chin. "They're dead," she whispered. "They shot everyone. I hid in the coal bin. I ran when they started looting the car behind me." Jed set down the thermos and raised both hands slowly. His fingers began to move, not in violence, not in warning, but in language. She froze, her eyes locked on his hands. He signed again, slower this time. "You are safe." She blinked, mouth slightly parted. Then, barely audible, "You're signing?" Jed nodded. The woman steadied herself, clutching the case to her chest. Her voice was softer now. "I learned a little. My brother was mute." "You signed safe?" He nodded again. Clara stepped beside her father and signed something too. Her hands fluttered like doves. The woman's eyes glistened. "She said ... You're not alone, didn't she?" Jed gestured toward the depot's back door. The wind had picked up. It carried voices now, male, distant, a motor. He led them through a narrow hallway of tools and spare parts, toward a root cellar half covered by old crates. It wasn't built for guests, it was built for surviving dust storms and maybe worse. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of preserved peaches and motor grease. They descended without a sound. As he shut the trap door, the woman whispered, "I'm Vivian." "Vivian Crane?" Jed didn't answer. Clara tapped his arm and pointed toward the corner. He nodded. She unrolled a blanket for their guest and lit the lantern with practiced ease. Vivian sat down slowly, still clinging to the case, her eyes flicked from father to daughter. "I thought ... This place was abandoned, but you live here?" Clara signed a reply. Vivian tilted her head, trying to follow. Jed crouched beside her and made a single motion, the sign for home. She looked down. "You signed home, didn't you?" He nodded. Vivian exhaled, and something in her posture softened. Just a fraction. The silence felt heavier now, but not hostile. Just ... Full, a low rumble passed overhead. Not. Thunder, an engine, Vivian stiffened. "That's them." Jed moved to a small hatch above and peered through a slit in the wood. 2 men, dark coats, one with a limp. They walked slowly across the gravel, scanning tracks, rifles slung low. One bent down and touched the earth like a tracker. He looked up toward the station, then toward the hills. Vivian's hands trembled. They want this, she whispered, tapping the case. It's not money, it's information, the kind men kill for. Jed didn't ask questions. He never did. He simply placed his hand on Clara's shoulder and squeezed gently. Clara reached out, not to her father, not to the case, but to Vivian. She held her hand out, open and small. Vivian stared at it like it was a lifeline, and then, finally, she took it. They stayed hidden through the afternoon. The men above rummaged, broke the lock to the storage closet, then cursed loudly. One fired a shot into the air, and Vivian flinched so hard she bit her tongue. Jed never moved. Just watched, measured, waited. By nightfall, they were gone. The rumble of tires faded into the distance. Vivian sat with her back against the stone wall, knees pulled to her chest. I'm not supposed to be here, she whispered. I was on that train to escape. The case was a failsafe. If I died, someone else would find it, but I lived. Clara watched her closely, then signed. Vivian looked to Jed for translation. He moved his hands gently. Living is not failure. Tears welled in her eyes. You people don't even know me. Clara signed again. Jed smiled faintly. You're here, that's enough. Vivian didn't reply. She just stared at the case in her lap. Outside, the wind changed direction. The silence returned, but now it wasn't empty. It was listening. The night dragged on without ticking clocks or soft beds. Vivian couldn't sleep. The root cellar was cold, but that wasn't what kept her awake. It was the smell of old earth and motor oil, the flicker of lantern light casting ghost shadows against the stone. She lay on a threadbare blanket, one hand curled around the case, the other around nothing, a habit left from holding her younger brother's hand during night terrors years ago. But he was gone now, so were the guards. So was the train. Jed hadn't said a word since sundown. He sat cross-legged near the stairs, had pulled low, watching the hatch like a sentinel carved from granite. Clara had fallen asleep beside a stack of canned peaches, fingers still half-curled mid-sign, her dreams breathing soft and slow. Vivian stared at the ceiling. You don't ask many questions, she said into the quiet. Jed didn't respond. Most people want to know what's in the case, or what I did to get hunted. Still nothing. You used to be military, didn't you? She asked. Jed shifted slightly. Not toward her, just a tilt of his shoulder like a page-turning. Vivian sighed. You're quiet, but not empty. His hands moved slowly. We've all said enough in our lives to know when silence is better. She didn't smile, but her lips twitched. She sat up, wincing from the stiffness in her back. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. She admitted, this chip in the case. It's supposed to break encryption barriers. Military, medical, even financial systems. I developed it with good intentions. But good intentions don't matter when power changes hands. Jed studied her. She ran her hand down the steel shell. They wanted to sell it to the highest bidder. I leaked enough information to draw fire just to wake people up. Instead, I became a target. I got people killed. Jed signed once. You ran, but you didn't let go. Vivian swallowed. No, upstairs. Something creaked, a floorboard. Too heavy to be wind. Yet's head turned instantly. He held up a hand to her. Stay. Clara stirred, blinking herself awake. Jed signed quickly, fingers sharp and silent. Clara nodded, crawled over to Vivian, and pulled her gently toward a side hatch, a narrow escape tunnel half hidden behind tool racks. Vivian crawled into it without argument, dragging the case behind her. Through a slit in the wood, they watched as boots stepped onto the cellar door. Then came a voice. Not a yell, a whisper. You in there, Carter? Yet's breath stilled. The voice had a limp in it. Scraped and snarled like it had been broken and poorly reset. You got someone in there, don't be long, the voice continued. She's ours. The case is ours. Jed said nothing. The boot kicked once, not enough. To break the hatch, just enough to test its fear. Asterisk, you think you can protect her with tools and dirt and silence? Come on out, Carter, let's talk. Jed didn't move. They waited. 2 minutes, 5, then silence again. Asterisk, Vivian whispered, they know your name. Asterisk, Clara looked at her, eyes wide. Signed something, asterisk, Vivian turned to Jed. She said, ... They've, been watching? Jed nodded once. When dawn broke, the air was thick with dust. Jed led them out through the escape shaft under the cover of morning fog. They crossed the dry fields toward an old cabin on the edge of a bluff. The cabin looked abandoned, boards missing. Porch collapsed, but inside it was stocked firewood, blankets, food, asterisk, Clara immediately lit the small stove and began heating broth. She moved without fear, with practiced calm. Vivian watched, marveling at how this little girl had grown into silence without becoming small. Asterisk, Jed pointed to the ridge. Asterisk, is it safe there? Vivian asked. Asterisk, he signed, safer than here. For now. Asterisk, Vivian touched the edge of the case. I should leave. I'm bringing danger to your door. Asterisk, Clara interrupted with a soft tap on Vivian's arm. She signed carefully, her motion slower this time. Asterisk, Vivian squinted. Did she just say, you're already part of the door? Asterisk, Jed smiled. He translated. She meant, you're already inside. Asterisk, Vivian didn't know what to say to that. Her heart had been built in high-rise offices and concrete corridors. It had no defense against kindness this quiet asterisk hours past. The world outside remained. Still, but something in the wind felt shifted, off. Asterisk, Jed stepped out to check the perimeter. While he was gone, Vivian opened the case, asterisk inside. The chip, still sealed in its vacuum pouch. Alongside it, a hand-drawn schematic, old and yellowed, with faded initials at the bottom. JC, her breath caught. She turned the page. Another, a different design. Older, bulkier, but nearly identical. Notes in the margins. Signatures, his asterisk, when Jed returned, she stood and held it out to him. Asterisk, you . You designed the original, she said, voice soft. Asterisk, he looked at the page, then at her. His expression didn't change. Asterisk, I based mine off a retired encryption design no one understood. It was missing pieces I filled, but this is the foundation. Asterisk, Jed nodded once. No pride. No shame. Asterisk, you left it behind. Asterisk, he signed. After she died, I couldn't speak that language anymore. Asterisk, Vivian understood. Not the words. The weight. Asterisk, Jed sat down slowly. Clara leaned against him, tiny hands playing with the edge of his sleeve. Asterisk, Vivian whispered, why did you stay here, Jed? He looked out the window. Because my daughter hears things the rest of the world forgets. Asterisk, Vivian wiped her face. She hadn't realized she was crying. Not from fear, from the quietness of it all, the way grief didn't scream in this house. It hummed, it breathed through floorboards. It grew flowers in dry places. Asterisk, Clara tugged on her sleeve again, signing something with a shy smile. Asterisk, Vivian shook her head. Slower. Clara repeated it. Vivian glanced at Jed. Did she just say, you should stay until the dust learns your name? Asterisk, he laughed, a low, real, rusted sound. Then translated. She said, you're safe until the wind knows you. Asterisk, outside. The sky began to darken again. Not from storm, but from tire tracks winding back toward the depot. Jed stood. He reached under the bed, pulling out a worn rifle wrapped in a leather saddlebag. He handed Vivian a small pouch of dried powder, the kind used to mark trails or make smoke signals when fire won't hold. Asterisk, he signed. Tomorrow, we choose. Vivian held the chip tighter. The past had found them, and silence would no longer be enough. The sky cracked just before dawn. Asterisk, a thin line of gold tried to split the horizon, but the storm swallowed it before it reached the earth. Clouds rolled low and mean, the kind that carried more than just rain. Dust coated the windows, thick and clinging like the past. The silence that had once lived in the hills was gone now, replaced by the hush that comes before a gunshot. Asterisk Jed stood at the window, his fingers resting on the sill, unmoving. Behind him, Clara pulled on her boots without needing a word. Vivian tied her wounded arm in a sling. Her eyes were bloodshot but clear. Outside they were coming. 5 men, 2 trucks. The kind of quiet that never meant peace. Tires creaked over dry grass. No horns, no shouting. Just steady, hungry movement. Like wolves closing in, asterisk Clara tugged her father's sleeve. She signed something fast. Asterisk Vivian watched. What did she say? Jed glanced back. She wants to know if we're going to run. Asterisk Vivian stepped forward. We can... I know trails. We can move fast, split up, double back. Jed shook his head. Vivian lowered her voice. If they get the chip, they'll sell it to whoever pays best. That means war, Jed. It means blood in cities that haven't bled yet. Asterisk, he reached under the kitchen table and pulled out a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. He unrolled it. A second schematic, older, hand-drawn, a bridge between what he had built and what she had finished. A message in ink. Asterisk, I don't care about the chip, Vivian whispered. I care about her. Asterisk Jed looked at her, and for the first time he spoke. His voice was low, gravel, rusted like something long buried. So do I. Asterisk Vivian flinched. The sound of him speaking broke something in the room. Clara's eyes welled up, not from fear, from recognition. Her father's voice, unused for years, wasn't broken. It was just waiting for this. The first shot tore through the front porch, wood splintered. Jed pushed Clara behind the stove and pulled Vivian toward the back cellar. They moved fast, not with panic, but purpose. Vivian clutched the steel case against her chest. Her blood was seeping through her sleeve. Asterisk Jed kicked open the cellar trap and shoved the schematic into Vivian's coat. Then he handed her something small, his harmonica. Asterisk. She looked at him. He nodded. Clara signed something in a flurry of movement. Vivian choked on a sob and crouched low beside her. Asterisk. What did she say? Vivian asked. Jed looked toward the door, eyes hard. She said, Don't let silence die with us. He closed the trapdoor. Vivian and Clara descended into darkness. Outside, the world burned. The men came like shadows with teeth. Jed met them alone. He moved between cover like a ghost, rifle held tight, every step deliberate. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to buy time. Asterisk 2 fell before they knew where he was. A third bled into the dirt behind the water trough. But the 4th and 5th were smarter. They boxed him in, cornered him in his own home. Asterisk, they kicked through the front door like war come to visit. Asterisk Jed waited inside the kitchen. Rifle empty, harmonica gone. His hands moved once, a sign meant only for Clara. Then he stood still. The leader entered. Tall, pale, a scar slicing through his cheek like a river dried up too fast. He held a pistol low. Asterisk, you could have lived, Carter. Should have let her go. Jed didn't answer. The leader cocked the hammer. Where's the chip? Jed stepped forward. The man raised the gun. Asterisk, but before he could fire, the stove exploded. Asterisk from beneath the floor. Vivian had triggered the powder. A blast of dirt, ash, and heat roared through the house. Not enough to kill. Just enough to blind. Jed dove forward. He didn't shoot. He tackled the man through the window. Asterisk, they fell hard, rolled through broken glass and smoke. Fists, dirt, blood. It wasn't a fight. It was a question being asked. With knuckles and grit, do you deserve to leave this land alive? Asterisk Jed didn't answer with words. He answered with a stone. Asterisk, the man didn't get back up. Silence returned. Vivian crawled out of the cellar with Clara wrapped in a blanket, both covered in ash. The house smoldered. Flames licked the walls. Vivian ran to Jed, fell to her knees beside him. He was breathing, barely. Asterisk Clara leaned in, pressing her hands to his chest, signing through tears. Asterisk Vivian translated between sobs. She says you were the voice she never needed to hear. That you gave her a world where silence wasn't lonely. Jed opened his eyes. He touched Clara's hand. Then he handed her the harmonica. She took it. Held it close. Asterisk, the fire didn't spread far. Miriam, the old Lakota midwife, arrived with neighbors. Buckets, blankets, a wagon. Asterisk they buried the dead. Behind the depot. No names, just stones and sky. Asterisk Vivian stood by the grave with the steel case in her hands. She looked at Clara. Asterisk, do you want to come with me? She asked. Asterisk Clara shook her head. Then signed something slow. Asterisk Vivian watched, tears blurring her eyes. She said, "This land hears me now." They rebuilt the house together. Vivian left a week later, but not empty-handed. She carried the harmonica in one pocket and yet schematic in the other. She built a foundation, not for weapons, but for children like Clara. For those who spoke without sound. Asterisk, and sometimes, in her office far away from the dust and fields, she would hear wind blow through open windows and swear it sounded like a song. Years passed. One day, a new telegraph line opened at the edge of the town. Its first message wasn't for business or war. It was simple. She still sings. The world finally listens.